She smiled when she mocked him on national TV. He just stared, silent. But when Denzel finally spoke, not only did she stop laughing, the entire room fell into stunned silence. The press room in Washington, D.C., pulsed with its usual frenetic energy. Rows of reporters, their notebooks open and cameras rolling, leaned forward, anticipating the next soundbite. Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, stood at the podium, her posture impeccable, her expression a blend of poise and calculated intensity. She was no stranger to the spotlight. Her quick wit and sharp tongue had made her a formidable presence in the political arena. The questions came fast, a barrage of inquiries about policy decisions, economic forecasts, and the latest international tensions. But Karoline was in her element, deflecting, redirecting, and occasionally landing a jab that drew gasps or uneasy laughter from the room. On this particular day, the air felt heavier. The topic had veered into the influence of celebrity endorsements on public opinion, a subject that always stirred debate. A reporter had asked about the role of Hollywood in shaping political narratives, and Karoline, sensing an opportunity to pivot, leaned into the microphone with a glint in her eye. "Maybe we should ask Denzel," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Since everyone seems to treat actors like policy experts now." The room froze for a split second. Few nervous chuckles broke the silence, but most reporters exchanged glances, sensing the line she'd just crossed. It wasn't aimed at a rival politician or a pesky journalist. It was a jab at Denzel Washington, an icon whose name carried weight far beyond the entertainment world. The cameras caught her smirk, the kind that said she knew she'd landed a punch. She moved on to the next question. Assuming the moment would dissolve into the churn of the 24-hour news cycle. She was wrong. By that evening, the clip was everywhere. Cable news networks looped it, dissecting her tone, her intent, her choice of target. Social media platforms exploded with reactions, some cheering her audacity, others calling it a cheap shot. X lit up with hashtags. Hashtag Karoline vs. Denzel, hashtag pressroomshade. Pundits on late-night talk shows weighed in, some framing it as a playful jab, others as a misstep that revealed a deeper disdain for those outside the political bubble. Memes began to circulate, Karoline's smirk juxtaposed with stills of Denzel's most intense movie characters. From Training Day to Malcolm X, the internet, as it often does, turned a fleeting moment into a cultural flashpoint. Karoline's team likely advised her to let it blow over. It was one line, after all, a quip meant to score points, not start a war. But the story didn't fade, it grew. And then, 3 days later, Denzel Washington responded. It wasn't the response anyone expected. There was no fiery tweet, no carefully scripted video dropped on Instagram. Instead, it happened quietly, almost serendipitously, at a small roundtable event hosted by Howard University. The room was intimate, filled with students, faculty, and a few local journalists. The event was meant to discuss Denzel's career, his philanthropy, and the role of storytelling in shaping culture. But during the Q&A, a bold student stood up, microphone in hand, and asked the question that had been burning across the internet. "Mr. Washington, what do you think about Karoline Leavitt's comment about you in the press room?" The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Denzel, who was seated at a long table, his hands folded casually in front of him. He didn't react immediately. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his presence commanding the space without effort. The students held their breath, expecting perhaps a laugh, a dismissal, or even a pointed retort. But Denzel's face softened into a smile, not one of amusement, but of quiet conviction, the kind that signals a storm is coming, not in volume, but in truth. He adjusted the microphone, his voice low but clear, cutting through the hush like a blade. "When you need the spotlight more than the truth," he said, pausing just long enough for the words to sink in, "you become allergic to wisdom." The room erupted. Not in chaos, but in a wave of stunned applause, the kind that follows a moment so precise, so profound, that it shifts the air. The student who asked the question blinked, as if unsure whether to follow up. The moderator, sensing the weight of the moment, quickly moved to the next topic, but it was too late. The sentence had landed. By the next morning, Denzel's words were everywhere. News outlets ran headlines. Denzel Washington's one-sentence takedown of Karoline Leavitt goes viral. Talk shows replayed the clip, not as a celebrity feud, but as a masterclass in restraint and insight. On X, users quoted the line endlessly, turning it into a rallying cry against performative politics. Memes multiplied, Denzel's calm delivery, paired with captions like, "When you come for the king, you best not miss." Commentators praised the elegance of his response, noting how it wasn't just a clapback, it was a mirror held up to a culture obsessed with sound bites over substance. For Karoline, the fallout was inescapable. The media didn't let it go. Every replay of Denzel's words was a reminder of her miscalculation. Her smirk, once a symbol of confidence, now looked like hubris. Her advisors likely urged her to stay silent, and she did. No follow-up statement, no attempt to double down or explain. No mention of Denzel's name. She returned to the podium the next day, her tone measured, her answers clipped, but the room felt different. The reporters' questions carried an edge, as if testing whether she'd take another swing. She didn't. Weeks passed, and the story began to fade, as all stories do. But Denzel's sentence lingered. It wasn't just a viral moment, it was a lesson etched into the public consciousness. History, as it often does, forgot the insult. It forgot the smirk, the press room, the nervous laughter. But it remembered the sentence that shut it down. A quiet thunder that echoed long after the cameras stopped rolling.